A green roof always has a set of standard components that go into it, and you can lay them individually on your own, starting with a membrane layer and stacking them up, or you can buy modules from vendors, and that's a pretty common way to go. They always go in this same order. Starting with the waterproof membrane, which is a rubbery, plasticky layer, could be PVC or some of these other kinds of thermoplastic. It's waterproof. The seams have to be sealed carefully, and the contractor has to know how to avoid damaging the surface once it's laid down. So it's important that you use experienced contractors when you're putting this membrane down. Then, after it's installed, there's a 24-hour leak test to make sure that all the seams are tightly sealed. Above that is a drainage system, and if you're using modules, that drainage system can be a part of the units that you get, or you can install these cellular things as you're building up your own layers, or it can even be part of the building system, as you see here in the Key Bank green roof. And this drainage system, it's kind of like the bed of rocks under porous paving. It's the reservoir that the water runs into. And so it's a temporary storage area. It keeps the water out of the plants. It carries the water eventually to any drain pipes that you have. And sometimes it feeds water back into an irrigation system. Then above that we have a root barrier that keeps roots from penetrating the waterproof membrane. Then there's a layer of filter cloth, and that keeps the sediments from the growing medium from filtering down and clogging things up. And the growing medium. We keep referring to it as growing medium. That's because it's not soil. It's an engineered medium that includes soil, but it's carefully designed, first of all, to be lightweight. That's why we see things like vermiculite or perlite or pumice in there. And then designed to have just the right properties of permeability and water retention. If it's an intensive green roof, that means it's got a deep planting bed with a variety of plants, then it will need more organic matter that can retain water and provide nutrients. If it's an extensive green roof, then it'll be a different sort of mix. Finally, the plants, the part that you see up on top. If you have an extensive green roof, the kind that has a shallow growing medium, then remember that the environment up on top of a roof is a harsh environment. The sun beats down, the wind blows on it, it gets dry up there. Most plants cannot tolerate that kind of environment. And so you often see various kinds of sedums on an extensive green roof. And they're not just, succulent, deserty looking things. Sedums actually have dramatic bloom colors, as you see on the Multnomah County Library here. The diagram in the lower left corner is from the city of Portland, and they're reminding us that if you have an extensive green roof, that the north and east slopes of your roof are going to be less harsh than the south and west slopes, so keep that in mind. Thinking about plants, if you're doing an intensive green roof where you have plenty of planting depth, then you can use a full plant palette, including trees. It's just important to remember that trees have big roots and they need adequate planting depth. So you can't just put a big old tree in a shallow tray. It has to have lots of growing medium volume. This list summarizes the kinds of plants that you can use in various kinds of depths, from 2-inch depth, where you'd want just simple sedums and moss, on up to 20 inches and more, where you can have actually small trees. So those are the basic layers. Now there are some other things that are optional. What you're looking at here is a park in Chicago. It's near that Millennium Park that we looked at earlier. It's called Maggie Daley Park, and you'll notice that it has a bunch of topography. Well, this is actually another green roof above a multi-story parking garage. And to create the topography, they used blocks of styrofoam to not only provide insulation, but also to create the slopes. One thing that some designers consider is irrigation. Now, you will need some irrigation no matter what you're doing. You'll need some irrigation until the plants are established. That's true of any site. What you're seeing here in the picture from the city of Portland is that it doesn't have to be a fancy irrigation system. You can go up there with a hose. He's got a hose and a sprayer just to help the plants get established. Or you can install drip irrigation lines, as we see at the top. Or you can install regular pop-up spray sprinklers like you see at the bottom. Some people even put water features as part of the landscape in an intensive green roof. And believe it or not, this pond and waterfall is actually a green roof. This is on top of a hotel in Tokyo. If you're doing especially an intensive green roof, you need to think about the structural capacity of your building, and you need an engineer. At the top of this slide, you're looking at obviously a very heavy green roof. This is the Standard Insurance building in downtown Portland. See all that heavy stone plus trees. These are big trees, by the way, in their planting beds. And then at the bottom, we're looking again at the employee garden area in Key Bank in downtown Portland. So your structural engineer will evaluate the building and calculate how much weight you can put where. And it's often the case that they will say there are some places, for example, where there are columns, where you could put big, heavy things. And then there are other places in the middles of spans where maybe you can only do extensive stuff and low plants with shallow growing medium. Here is a close-up picture of a contractor using styrofoam, both for insulation and again to build up the contours. And, you know, there's a trade-off here. The idea of building a green roof that's going to get lead points and then using masses of styrofoam is troubling to some people. Now, if you have a sloped roof, more than about 2 and 12, you'll need an engineer and you'll need to be thinking about some things. So here is an example from the green roof manager at the city of Portland. He put this roof on his house. It's a sloped roof, and he's demonstrating how you can put these cross battens on the roof to help hold the growing medium. Some people think about the fact that water runs downhill, and so they will put drought-resistant plants at the top where the water will flow away, and then plants that need water at the bottom where the water is going to run down to. If your slope is more than about 2 and 12, which works out to a little over 10 degrees, a little under 10 degrees pitch, you will need an engineer to help you work on stability and so forth. You can only go so steep before things just are not working. And the building that we're looking at here, which is in Pennsylvania, is really an exception. You can see how steep this roof is. They had a lot of engineering work and a lot of structural battens in there to help hold the roof. You don't usually see them that steep. Your green roof will require a little maintenance. You can't just set it and forget it and let it go. It doesn't need a lot, but you do need to watch for things like if you have irrigation, you need to monitor the irrigation system, make sure that it's not getting plugged up. You need to watch for are any invasive plants blowing in and getting established that you should remove, so on and so forth. If there have been some heavy storms, you might want to check for kinds of erosion. You do want to plan ahead for how to avoid walking on these plants. A lot of people put boards, walkways in here, maybe before they ever plant them, so that you permanently have a place to walk. And here are some sources for you. I will point out this one website here, Green Roofs for Healthy Cities, is the primary source for research on green roofs. It's a nonprofit. It's a vast website. If you go to their website, you will see lots of case studies and illustrations, as well as lots of technical data. They offer training courses. Here are 3 of them. They originally were planning 6 green roof certification courses. I think they've dialed that back to 4 now. So I've included data from the first 3. And then here are some books, and the city of Portland has a lot of information. Again, they are the leader.